Let me do an informal poll. How many, well, you're all technology people, right?
Yes.
Fair enough, okay. Well, duh, what are you doing here? Okay. How many of you are musicians? Okay. Artists? Okay. Creative people? All right, okay. Crazy? Perfect. Perfect. Yes, I like to advertise my position in the band. So, for any of you who are drummers, I finally got somebody to order these. Thomas Lang. Anybody heard of the drummer Thomas Lang? Excellent. One person. Yeah. Woo. Okay. Anyway, he makes a drumstick that is approximately the size of half a 2x4. For those of you who really like to pound it out, so or want to defend yourself. Some of the people who are here, why are most rock songs in 4/4 time? Anybody know?
Because it's really simple and easy to write sheet music for that.
Yeah, but that's not funny. Why? Well, it's because that's how
drummers
high we
can't
can
count to 5?
That's not even true. That's not even true. You know how to you can count different time signatures if you have a right ear for it.
My favorite thing to do is to watch other drummers and lose the will to play ever again and live. Because I can't do 4 time signatures at once, one with each limb. You know, it's always interesting to watch somebody else's technique. People like Marco Miniman and Mike Mangini and stuff like that. So you know that point where you have to describe to somebody else what it is that you do. Have you ever seen? We got the. They must have some sort of writing implement somewhere, right? No. Oh well. Have you ever had to explain to somebody the difference between geek and nerd?
Writing instruments are connected to that thing over there, probably,
Yeah.
because you're displaying something on it.
No, I'll just go in for a
Just
whiteboard.
throwing you
marker.
a
Thanks.
carrot, you know, you're looking for a
Let me
writing
get a Sharpie
instrument,
here.
there isn't one here.
All right, on this. Here's one of those things you only learn as a presenter. Do you know how much these screens typically cost?
Oh, that's okay.
Like
Few
a couple
grand.
thousand?
Yeah, a couple thousand at least. If you're working out at an IBM facility, it's $5,000. And if you use even a whiteboard marker on it, it may never come out. Except for if you call your wife in a panic and say, "Quick, what can I use to get whiteboard marker out of a $5,000 screen?" And she says, "Final Net hairspray." I was like, "Really? Let's just go get it quickly before it dries completely." Came back, sprayed a bunch of Final Net hairspray on it, and it wiped off. And the facilities guy went, "Dude, I'm buying a case."
I guess so, yeah.
Me, all I cared was I spent $4.99 on a can of Final Net hairspray and didn't have to buy a $5,000 screen. That's all I cared about. So,
What were you doing a can of Final Net hairspray at? I might ask if you're kind of partially cropped.
yeah, follically challenged. Yes. Yeah. I like to use my brilliance on other things. Not this. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Hey, thanks for coming in, especially this early in the morning. I'm not sure who I ticked off to get 2 9:30 a.m. sessions, one on each day, but whoever it is, I'm so sorry. Can I have like a 3:30 session next time? I'm usually the one who's in between everybody and calories and beer and stuff like that, so I'm okay with that. So I'm Ross Brunson, and my job has been, all kinds of interesting stuff, but lately I'm the certification architect at SUSE, which is a really interesting year because we have 6 new certifications coming out this year. So it's a very busy time, but it's also a really interesting time because it's a good time for me to come out and do these kind of presentations because right now, approximately 1/9 of our organizational capacity is unfilled. So we have about 106 open requisitions right now. And for those of you who are looking for jobs, et cetera, we're certainly not the only ones. I like to focus things on us because I like to get good people into our place. Now, I tell people about working at SUSE the same way that I tell people about where I live, and we talked about this briefly. The rest of you didn't hear it. I'm from Montana. Anybody know where Montana is? Yeah, I'm in the mountain northwest.
Yeah.
Most of you will be like, okay, yeah. the worst amount of vapor lock I ever caused somebody was on the airplane, and they said, "Where are you from?" And I said, "Montana." You could tell the guy's like, "It's one of those square ones out there somewhere." You know. And I said, yeah, it's easy to find. It's on the Texas-Canada border. And he went and just sat there. Oh crap, I've ruined him. And he kind of came out of it and he goes, "Well, you are right, because Texas, Canada, something like, yeah, it's okay." So we tell people say, "Is it nice out there?" And I say, "Yeah." But I only say yeah if I want you to come out and visit. If I don't want you to come out and visit or I don't like you, I'll say, "You'll love the Dakotas. They're really beautiful this time of year." I had one guy who was from the Dakotas, and he's like, "I have an issue with that." I said, "Wait, stop, sir. Where do you live?" And he goes, "Washington." I'm like, "Why don't you live in the Dakotas?" I'm going to talk about it. Okay. Just checking. Just checking. So I tell people about SUSE, and I tell people about Linux and open source jobs with the main reason that I want to fill those jobs. I want good people in those jobs. And this presentation it may not apply to every single one of you 100%, but it ought to have something for all of you, simply because I give this presentation or a variation of it a lot in the world of college students in colleges and people who are, it applies both to getting your first job in Linux and open source and getting your first job, which would hopefully be in Linux and open source these days. So, and I don't say Linux anymore because it's so much more than that. It used to be, you know, you couldn't get anybody to describe or understand what Linux was in the first place. Key thing, I'm driving over this morning with the guy from the shuttle, and he says, "What's the conference about?" And I said, "Linux." Long silence. He said, "Air conditioning?" No. Okay, buddy, look here. You have an Android phone? Okay, let's start. That's the best place to start of all. Android phone, okay? It's kind of Linux, sort of. Yes, yeah, right? Maybe a couple of people know. To the lay person, it's Linux. It's something they can hold in their hands and go, "Wow, there's a lot of Android phones on the planet." Yes, there are. So let me run you through a few things. Quick overview: the open source job market. The job market for Linux and open source has gone from, "Gosh, I really wish I could get a job in Linux and open source," to there's somebody here, just talked to him, who said, "I'm here hiring." How many of you are here looking for a job? Okay. How many of you are hiring? Great. Meet each other. Okay. And I want to show you some of the ways that we figured out in order to get you into the market, even if you don't have the experience in the market yet. And that and all the different talks and all the different conversations that I've had over the last 10 years or so of trying to get people into this market, I've noticed that was the one sticking point, was getting experience. And so I got a couple things for that I think might be a little bit helpful to you. You may look at it and go, "Well, duh," but most people don't. So the open source job market, Linux Foundation puts out a jobs report every year. It's been really interesting for the last 5 or 6 years as we watch the numbers climb and climb and climb. Now it's to the point where when somebody says, "Well, I'm looking for a job, and what do you think I ought to do?" Well, you got to go look at Linux and open source companies. You got to look at working in free software. You got to join the open source workforce. Okay? Why? Because there's a lot of jobs out there, and not just jobs as in, what was somebody called his job the Java janitor. So I threw that in the presentation. I'm like, okay, Java janitor, I like that. Garbage collection, get it? Never mind. Sorry. I have a moment of silence for that one. Okay, when you look at the Linux Foundation Jobs Report, you're going to see a lot of very good numbers. You also see some great graphs, etc. And this is the kind of thing that if you're trying to desperately convince people around you in your organization, etc., that we ought to go more with open source, you can go and drop that on somebody's desk. Why? Because it's got circles and lines and numbers and it's pretty, and executives appreciate that. They don't appreciate that analogy, but they appreciate that. The job search sites. Do a quick job search out on simplyhired.com for Linux administrator. You know that people have searched for this and that there's a lot of jobs there. If it pops up a predefined category before you can even type LI, they know what you're looking for. Okay? 11,000 plus jobs. Now, these are ones that have Linux administrator in the job title or the short description. Okay? Not the ones where you really got to mine for it. Now, good old Dice wouldn't let me do a nationwide search. They make you choose a city. Oh, come on. That's making it hard on me now. But they have 455 jobs listed in the Seattle area for that. Okay? How many jobs in the Montana area? And I know who it is. Upwork. This is one that I've done a lot of discussion with. I used to work with the folks who ran it. They transitioned to another company. They're still doing a good job. Upwork is a freelancing. If you want to become a freelancer and get some experience, this is a great place to go. If you are somebody who wants to get somebody, you don't care where they are, and you're trying to figure out who can do left-handed upside down kernel development on a satellite dish, as we used to call the escape Boolean right bracket job. In other words, I don't know what the hell it is, but it sounds great and the pay is wonderful. You can go there. You will find probably 50, 60 people on the planet who are doing something similar to what you're asking. Okay? So that might be one for you. Okay. And Upwork, basically, you go out and you look, you can see, and I really like the way they've done it. You can see who the person is, you can see what they've done, you can see the projects they've worked on, you can see the number of hours they've worked on those projects, and you can read reviews and like a 5-star, 4 to 5 star, whatever rating, etc. Basically, what Upwork gives you as a freelancer is effectively a cover letter, resume, and job history all in one easily PDFable format. So if somebody wants to know what you do, print your profile and send it to them, or just send them the link to you. Trying to find somebody to do something that you're not sure where those people are, how it can happen, you're going to find a lot of people out there who specialize in doing particular things. They do them really well, and that's all they do. So use that laser focus over at Upwork and go find that person who's doing what you're trying to do. Now, who isn't using open source? The list is dwindling. Okay, I got a question for you. How do y'all feel about the recent Bash developments with Microsoft?
I'm kind of not sure how I feel about it.
Kind of iffy about it, right?
Yeah.
Like somebody said, and I won't say that I agree with this, but I thought it was funny. Too little, too late.
Yeah, I think that Microsoft is kind of forced to do it more so than choosing to do it, right? Because that's how they can maintain even relevancy in the next few years is by opening up their platform. That's why they're trying to open source .NET because they're trying to get more people to use it because they don't.
You mean mono? Sorry.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, here's the thing: is that the way I feel about Microsoft getting into open source, and especially Linux, and especially using Ubuntu in the Bash shell, is kind of like I felt when my dad liked the same band that I did. Just wrong.
That's
okay,
good, that's good.
Seeing my dad going, like, stop it, please! You're making me ill. Don't do it. Well, I do like one direction that they're going, and that is that their CEO these days now at least recognizes that the war is kind of over. Let's stop lashing out at everybody and doing all this stuff. Let's try to be a business and try to make some money. Okay, not insane amounts, but let's try to make some money. The hottest jobs that are out there. This is an interesting because you get a lot of opinions about this. A lot of people will say, well, Kernel Developer is a really hot job. Actually, if you look at it, almost 80 to 82% of kernel developers are in a paid position these days. They work for a company. They work on the Linux kernel. They've got a salary. They've got a job. Oh my God, we've grown up, got a mortgage, car payment, family. It's a different world than it used to be. But it's very interesting because this means that kernel development is much more predictable these days, because people who have a salary and they go and do it every day, it may not be the most exciting thing that they do on the planet, but they do it in a predictable amount of time and fashion, etc. As opposed to those, we could tell when various large kernel committers got married, got a family, got a new job. You could just and then you all of a sudden for a while, and then back up as they started committing code again. So OpenStack and CloudStack. Now, not so much CloudStack anymore, but definitely OpenStack. This is probably the highest growing piece of SUSE's business right now. the SUSE OpenStack Cloud, which OpenStack is OpenStack. As a matter of fact, we're actually basing some of our certifications on top of the Certified OpenStack Administrator certification. So there's that certification piece again. You'll see that more and more. Now, what are some of the prerequisites for these jobs? Well, almost half of the hiring managers out there suggest that you be certified on something. The rest of them actually require it. Anybody tell me what a certification is?
Expensive.
That'd be the other guys. Sorry, we're half the cost. What is it actually? What is a certification?
It's a predefined test on a restricted topic that shows that you have both practical and more academic experience on that restricted topic. And it shows employers that you can do it.
Good. Not the same answer I was going to give, but it is excellent. Write that down. Okay. Seriously, I tell people, how many of you have been a project manager? Okay. Looking around the room, I can tell based on our ages who has. And especially in the category that I'm going to talk about, and that is about 10, 15 years ago, when you did a project, there may have been 3 to 5 disciplines of which you might have been able to vet all of them technically, maybe. At least be able to figure out if the person was supposed to be there or not. Last project I was on had 19 different job disciplines. There's no possible way that I can even vet a half or a third of that. And so what you need is an independent third-party metric that establishes at least a minimum level of skills, okay? So I like to say, technically speaking, certification isn't what a great rock star you are. It says, I certifiably don't suck at least this much. Okay? Seriously, when you look at it, you don't, unless they come up with some sort of an Angie's List for doctors or something like that, which there may actually be one, I really haven't looked. When you go to a doctor, you don't ask them their GPA in medical school. You assume that if they have gotten this certification, when somebody is Sun certified, and I don't mean Solaris, but Sun machines certified to work on your car, etc., you assume that if they've gone through the training and got the certification, they know at least roughly what they're doing. Okay, I would mention hairstylists who are also certified, but as you can see, I don't do that.
Yeah.
It's, not for a number of years yet. Okay, so the other thing here about the prerequisites for this certification is that certification can do one thing for you that a lot of people don't realize. It can get you 5, 10, 15, whatever points when they, now for those of you who've never been through this, when you do hiring for a position and there are lots, hundreds of candidates, what you do is you begin to quickly sort the stacks like playing solitaire, okay? Well, this person doesn't have the requirements. So you have certain requirements that must be met, and of the ones who meet that requirement, then you have to sort those further and further and further, typically put them into a spreadsheet, we put them in a Google spreadsheet, and then sort by the various columns, and the top 10 or 15% get an interview. Okay, well, if you don't have enough points to get you into the interview category, you don't get the interview. How can you go and impress the heck out of somebody with your wonderful work ethic and what a great person you are if you're standing outside the window of the shop and can't get in? Okay, it doesn't work that way. So you need to get in there. So if you have military experience, if you have anything that causes you to get additional work experience, certifications, etc., you're going to sort higher in the stack typically. I've had so many people come up to me at shows and go, oh, I just think certifications are worthless. All right, that's because you haven't hit a job you really wanted with every fiber of your being, and the only thing between you and it was my exam. A long silence. Oh, huh. Or you get somebody who goes, I never work on anything but this distribution. Right, that's because that plum job that's on the other one hasn't showed up yet. And when you do, you'll be running back over here going, when's the exams? Tomorrow. Okay, so I tell people don't get too balled up in what a certification is other than a way to prove that you have a certain minimum level of skills, and that'll be helpful to you. So how do you get your skills on? Do you know an operating system already? I have seen so many people and taught so many people in classes how to go from one operating system to another. People go, oh man, learning Linux and Unix is rough, especially permissions. I love that one. Somebody goes, Unix permissions are hard. Have you ever looked at the permission list on an ACL list for a Windows share? I got crap in there that I don't even think I understand what the words mean. There's 27 or some odd different permissions in there.
And
I
you
got
haven't even went
3.
into special. You haven't
Three.
even went into the special attributes yet.
Right? No. I'll have some of those. Yeah. I have one. Starts to be like an Arthur Murray dance routine. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1. It's 4, 2, 1, 4, 2, 1, 4, 2, 1, and then it's fractal because the special permissions are 4, 2, and 1. Okay? I can work that out pretty easily. After 20 years, yeah, I can work that out. If you're just approaching this from the Windows angle, it's a little bit more difficult. What we tell people is build a mental router table between the two. And I used to do that in class a lot. Okay, we're using VI or we're using Emacs or whatever. If you're going to do file, save as in Windows, here's how you do it in this one. People scribbling madly, right? Okay, he's doing the keystrokes up here. Good man. Okay, so the other thing that I like to tell people about this is when you look at the difference between the different operating systems, is it really comes down to where are the files and what are the tools that you actually use in order to configure this operating system. It's really not much more different than that. And I don't know about some of you, but I've been working with the same commands for about 25 years now. And they change about 5 to 7% per year. Some get new features, some get retired and things like that. Goodbye ifconfig. Okay, goodbye nslookup. Okay, we hardly knew you. Hello dig. Hello IP. But that skill set retention, that investment in a skill set and how long the shelf life of that skill set is, there hasn't been a better investment and longer shelf life for a skill set than Linux and Unix skills. Okay, 25 years and I'm still using the ls command, for God's sake. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I'm using less. I don't use more. And let's not get into the wars between the VI and Emacs and Pico and Nano and all the rest of that stuff. One of those things that, as a trainer, sometimes I think I ought to write a book. Nobody would read it, but anyway, about things that have happened in classes, and I have literally seen shoving and near fisticuffs over VI versus Emacs at least twice. Yeah, I'm like, sit down. What? It's editors. Relax. We'll fight it out later. We'll go out and drink beer, and you guys can fight over something that nobody else in the bar has any clue what you're talking about. What are they fighting about? I don't know. Some dude named Max. Some gal named Vi. So what do? Start wide and go specific. Go learn Linux. Okay, learn Linux. Don't learn my flavor of Linux. I work for SUSE. Okay, I think you ought to learn Linux overall first. Because if you learn Linux overall, adding a distribution is about 5 to 15% worth of where the file's at, what tools do you use, and what's the installation routine. Okay? And how do I update it? What's my package format? That's the differences between the different distributions. All I want you to do is learn Linux. Because if you know one, I can teach you the other one fairly quickly. Okay, that's really easy to do. So go out and get the Linux Foundation LFCS. Okay, that's a practicum exam. I like practicum exams. Practicum exams, you can't cheat. I love it when people say, well, what's the questions on the exam? Can you do it? Or like, there's only one? Yeah. Can you pass the exam? Can you do what we're asking you to do? Okay? Can you listen to business logic on a set of objectives and turn that into the set of steps that are necessary to do this from a technical perspective? Imagine your boss walks in, or somebody walks in, a manager walks in and says, yeah, we need a file share for the accounting department, and these people need to be in it, and this is what they need to be able to do. Okay, that's business logic. It doesn't sound a lot like logic, but follow the thing here. And what you need to do is turn that into a set of steps, special permissions, how are the groups applied, who's in what group, okay, all these different things, sticky bit, SGID, that kind of thing, in order to actually have it happen properly, right? That's what you need to be able to do. And if you can do that reliably, and you've done the actual tasks before, you should be okay on the exam. And then you can go specific. Now, a lot of people recently, especially for the last couple of years, every time I go somewhere, they're like, well, I'm going to learn Red Hat. Okay, fine. Why don't you learn Linux first? I'm going to learn Red Hat. Okay, fine. So you can get a job in Red Hat. That's cool. While you're doing that, please think about getting other certifications. because that job that runs on the other operating system, whether it's ours or Canonical, whatever it is going to come along, and you're going to be on panic trying to figure out how to prove that you know that other one. It's kind of like when you got a job is a great time to look for another job. When you're getting a certification is a great time to widen the scope out just a little bit and say, hey, maybe I should get another one while I've got all this loaded into my head. Okay? It's a good time to do that. And the market is definitely there for that. So this next section is a piece where I like to tell people the 4 steps that you need to do in order to get that first job. Either the first job you've ever had, like real professional job, like where you dress up and go to work and that kind of thing. For me, it was the Army, so it was easy getting dressed in the morning. My wife looks in my closet and she goes, who used to be in the military? Why is it all the shirts that all go? It's like garanimals for techies, I could take any shirt and any pair of pants and any pair of shoes. It doesn't matter which ones, and just throw them over there. And go, yep, those match. They're not ironed, but okay. So I like to call it rumpled tech man. The 4 steps to getting a job in this world are education. Now we'll go over each one of these, and there are some contingencies for each one. There's some special things to think about for each one of these. But this is after about, I'd say probably 200 of these conversations with folks who are getting jobs and trying to get jobs, trying to get folks jobs. I came up with this way of explaining this because it seems to match all the steps. So let's see if it does. If it doesn't, that's cool. I'll get something new out of it, and you'll get something out of it too. So education, credentials, aka certifications, experience, and then the interview. Okay, what's after this? The job offer. Has anybody ever gotten a job offer without an interview? Me too. I found out why when I got there. Nobody else worked there. You're going to be the senior instructor at our Aurora, Colorado facility. Awesome. That's great. That's great. When's the interview? We'd like you to start Monday. Uh-oh. So I went to the job. It lasted about 2 weeks because I was the only person who worked there outside of the financial people. And they had a full class curriculum, all of which I was going to teach. So it's like, yeah, if you get the job without an interview, it might be a danger signal. Just saying.
It's a red flag.
So, do you have a degree? If you have a degree of any kind, this is another one of those things where people will go, oh, I would apply for that job, but they say you have to have a master's and so and so. For networking? I gotta have a master's for networking? Really? And what that means to me is we get way too many applicants, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna try to skim off the ones who don't match this particular criteria. Last time we put up a job, we got 700 applicants. It drove our HR people crazy. That kind of thing. So, you know what? Just put it in. Because if you've got real skills, verifiable skills, a work history that shows that you know what you're doing, but you don't have the highfalutin whatever it is, they're probably going to give you an interview anyway. Okay? They'll notice that, typically. You can also write them a cover letter that showcases that. That's also reasonable. Okay? So degrees are very unspecific. Nobody ever put in a job requisition, I need somebody who's got a master's degree in information systems, because they're going to work on my information systems. Well, which information systems would that be? My IT ones. Uh-oh, we've got an exception over here.
I've seen them.
Have you?
They exist.
Really?
They do exist, yeah.
Is it for a professorship?
No.
For that? No? Really? Is it somebody who doesn't know how to write a job requisition?
Probably.
Probably.
If you've got a copy of one of those, I want to see one because I love that kind of stuff. I don't typically see that. I see specific keywords that tell the HR person what to look for in the person's resume and skills, and something like, okay, good, no match, bad, kind of thing. So you get sorted into the 2 piles, go and no go right away. So don't make your HR professional work too hard. Nothing worse than having a full wall of job requisitions you have to fill. Your pay depends on it and your bonus depends on it, and you've got to parse every single resume that comes through to the nth degree in order to find out if there's any matches whatsoever. Okay? This is why people power drink after work, okay? It's too much. And so they're not going to do it. They're going to take an easy way out of it. Okay? And that easy way means that if you match the criteria, but you didn't make it easy for the HR professional, that's on you, not on them. So, into credentials. I like to say college is, stick with me here, try not to laugh before I get through this. College is where you go and you learn how to live life, or as my buddy says, drink. Right, great, or whatever. Or avoid classes, or you pick up good study skills, or hopefully, college is going to be one of those things where you learn things that are going to affect you for the rest of your life. As Steve Martin used to say, you know, most of the stuff about college you forget, but psychology you remember just enough, no, philosophy, you remember just enough to screw you up for the rest of your life. Okay. So, you know, whatever you get out of college, that's great. But if you get a degree, that's great also, but it's not very specific. So a certification, I call a certification a college to job market adapter. This comes from the military phrase of somebody give me a butt to ground adapter. In other words, something to sit on. Okay. Anvil cases in the music industry, butt to ground adapter. Okay. So things like that. So when you look at it, I can approach the job market with my college degree, which is very unspecific, and hope somebody gets it and gives me a job. Or I can go out and get a single certification that contains keywords that actually match some of those job requisitions. Then I show up with both of those, and the HR professional goes, oh, a match, awesome. Interview. It can be as simple as that. And you may actually get the interview, and you probably get the job. Now, not to toot my own horn, because I've only done it once, is when you apply for a job that has 300 applicants, you're going to experience this feeling of, how could I possibly ever get this job? You know, it's just not possible. There's got to be people more qualified than me. Oddly enough, in this case, no, which is kind of scary. It came down to 2 people, me and another guy, for a city government job. 300 people. And I just had no concept that I was going to get this anyway. I was like, couldn't I do this for something more exciting than a city government job? Astronaut or something like that. But it was between the 2 of us, and I had 4 more points and slightly more experience. The 4 points were I had 1 certification. This is a long time ago. It was on NetWare 2.2. I was a CNA, and he didn't have any certifications at all. Otherwise, we're almost completely the same. And what did they do? Being city government, gave it to the person with the most points. Okay? I walked away from that going, certification actually got me the job. Everything else was equal. Certification got me the job. Maybe I should note that. Maybe I should go get another one. So the next time I go get a job, I just gotten a job, right? The next time I go get a job, I'll be already there. So that's how I got onto that world. So remember, when the job requisition has keywords in it and your certification has those keywords in it, you have made it very, very simple for that HR professional. Okay, so experience. Ooh, this is a rough one. How many of you have had the conversation with a prospective employer where they give you that, I just want to be friends. I don't really want to give you a job. You don't have any experience. I'm not going to believe in you. I'm not going to give you the job. They don't say that. But you can't seem to get a job because you can't get the experience. I've actually been there. Got out of the military, and first interviews are always tragic. Because you don't know anything, and you say stuff, and people go, and you go, uh-oh, I shouldn't say that again. They said, what do you used to do for a living? I was in the Army. Oh, what'd you do in the Army? Shot down planes for a living. Oh! End of interview. So from that point on, I say I used to work with aircraft systems. Which is true, in pieces. Okay. Yeah, so it's really all about putting it into perspective, I like to say. Finesse it just a little bit, okay? The truth is the truth, but sometimes if you dress it up just a little bit, sugarcoat it so it goes down a little easier, okay? So I tell people that what you really need is just enough experience to get you that first job. The moment you got the first one and they're paying you, it's absolutely on the resume from that point on. It's verifiable. They can call somebody you used to work with. You can get a recommendation or something like that, okay? Just enough to get that first job. So how do you do this? Bug your family and friends. set up web servers in the basement, in the sewing room, whatever it happens to be. Try everything. Virtual machines are an awesome thing. You can ruin as many as you want, Dixie cups, right? Oh, ruined that one. Revert. Okay. Snapshots are the bomb. I love snapshots.
Me too.
Then, after you've practiced and your family's absolutely tired of you doing all this stuff, and you've lost the family photos 2 or 3 times, okay? I'm so glad when all of the distributions went to the point where if they detected an NTFS or FAT32 partition, they just resized it as opposed to wiping it out, okay? It saved a lot of marriages and relationships right there. You did what? Uh-oh. I don't know, but whatever it is, I'm leaving. I'm going to go join the Foreign Legion. So now, you got to go get your first real experience. This is a tough one too, because you have to now go out, your family kind of has to put up with you and kind of has to love you, right? Or tolerate you at least in all the stuff that you're doing, and the fact that the power bill is now twice what it used to be because of all the systems that you have, etc. So organizations is a great thing. So how many different organizations, if you do an inventory of yourself right now, how many different organizations do you belong to, are you around, do you have an affinity with or an affiliation with, who have a website, use email to communicate with each other, and do any document sharing? Anybody here doesn't have anything in that category whatsoever? Right. Okay. Write them all down. Write them all down. Write down the people that you need to talk to in order to figure out if you can do that kind of thing for them, and go bother them. Go pester them. I love to help out. How do I volunteer in the IT department? Well, there's Bill. He's the IT department. Hi, Bill. Right? Bug them until they give you some tasks. Okay? The moment that you are doing this, you can claim this as volunteer experience. Okay, so here's the trick. I've been a hiring manager for a number of years on and off. If I go out and look at your LinkedIn, I should tell you, you all should know this by now. You apply for a job with me, you talk to me on the phone, I'm looking at your LinkedIn profile, okay? Simple. I just want to know who it is, what's public about you, what's the deal. Some people are like, that's creepy. Stay off LinkedIn then, okay? Yeah. I mean, really. Oh, no, I'm sorry. I went and looked at the information that you posted on the public internet. Really? Okay. Yeah. I'm sorry. What's it doing out there? Also, if you have public Facebook pictures, I love to see somebody with, hey, a SUSE t-shirt on, whatever, at a show, handing out stuff at the booth and doing talks and helping set up and break down stuff and, whatever it happens to be. If that's what I see out there and you have volunteer experience listed with a civic organization or something like that, I'm probably going to give you the interview. If nothing else, I'm sure we can get something out of the talk, and I might be able to refer you to somebody. If I don't need you, I'll give you to somebody else, okay? We do that a lot in the hiring world, especially in Linux and open source. We do kind of career development for people we don't even employ yet. Yes?
I don't know if you're going to get to it or not, but
Maybe.
I've had a couple of experiences with getting an interview and sit down and talk about what I've been programming, what open source projects I'm involved in, and then the guy's eyes glaze over and he tells me that the interview is for insurance sales. How does this happen to me?
I would say there.
Cross wires somewhere.
I would say it'd be somewhere in the parsing module. In other words, you're looking at an interview, you're looking at a job process or a description or whatever, and some keyword in there matches a keyword in what you're looking for, but they're not. Either that or they're recruiting people.
They called me up saying, "Hey, your resume is a great match. We like what you see. Let's come on in for an interview."
Okay, so what you can do is you can develop a quick set of 2 or 3 questions that you say, I get this a lot. Let me make sure that you're looking for ABC. And if they from an audio perspective glaze over on the phone, don't go. Okay? That's a good indication that, if they hang up, don't take it badly. This was just the wrong one. So,
I would
very
say it would
quickly.
make more sense to do the opposite. Ask them what they're looking for, so you can see if you match.
Mm-hmm.
Because, for example, you hopefully have a superset of what
Yeah.
you're looking for, and then you can match that from that superset rather than from the subset they're giving you.
Oh, yeah, I like that. I actually got a job at SUSE years ago. So when Novell bought SUSE, I joined from a third party and did all the training for people for Linux inside. So I was the Linux trainer for the Novell people who were all blood red and needed to become green. Okay. And when that was done, after about 4 years or so, I went to go get a job in what was called the enablement department. No, not the psychological enablement department, the sales enablement department. Teaching the salespeople and sales engineers. And I'm on the phone, long distance interview with my boss-to-be, Scott, and he's talking to me about a particular role. And I said, well, what does this role work with? It was a manager role. I do that. I said, who does this role work with? Well, we got a guy named Tom, and Tom is the technical specialist, and he describes the job to me. Jesus, my dream job right there. I couldn't think of a job at that point in my career that I wanted to do any less than that particular job. And they got a guy in it. So without thinking, I just said, well, I said, is Tom have any desire to be the manager role? Scott goes, I don't know. I said, well, Scott, I really like the job that Tom's in, and I want that job. I don't want the other one. Why don't you ask Tom if he wants to be in that role? And Scott is dumbfounded, like, whoa, okay. So Scott's a good guy. He goes and talks to Tom. Tom says, yeah, absolutely. He wasn't happy in the technical specialist role. Tom and I worked together for 6 years, with him in that role and me in the other role, the one that I wanted, and basically I just asked for it. So I like to tell people, if you're looking at a job and it doesn't really match what you want, go for it, okay? If you're not gonna take the job anyway, suggest that you might be great for another type of job. This actually works.
Because they don't always list jobs they're looking for.
Right, or they've got something in their head and they're just not really thought about it yet, and yeah.
To be fair, they don't even necessarily know that it's a job they want until you say it.
Yeah.
And then they can go, oh, hey, actually, one of
Well,
those would be handy.
I like the concept of the Franken job, okay? There's bits and pieces of different ones, bolts out the neck and things like that, It doesn't match exactly, but we need somebody for that role. Yeah.
A coda to this insurance sales misstep. The second time I did it, we started talking about one thing and another, and the conversation started evolving into, wouldn't it be great if we can get an application to do A, B, and C? So I rolled with that and stayed there for about another hour discussing this and taking copious notes.
Okay.
And I went home, went over it, and did a little bit of work on it. Ultimately, I didn't pursue it because of ethical problems I had with what they wanted to do, but
Always
There
a
you
good
go.
indication you should not take the job.
yeah.
If you
But
want to spit on the ground, go like this and go wash your hands after the interview. Don't take the job.
I'm just offering it as an example
Mhm.
of yeah, you said, I'd like that guy's job rather than this. That's,
Yeah.
I saw a parallel.
I have learned that if you know you're not going to take the job, you literally have nothing to lose and everything to gain.
Yep, exactly.
Make a suggestion. And I've also learned that some executives really value the role of what I would call technical Ronin or samurai. Okay? You're very specific. You do one set of things and you do it very well. And when they ask you for your advice on those things, you don't bullshit them at all. You tell them exactly what it is. Most executives' lives are filled with chaff and flares made of bullshit, okay? And when somebody speaks directly and straight to them and honestly, it's shocking, it's refreshing, and they tend to keep that person with them. I actually worked for an investment banker for 4 years one time. He went to 3 different organizations, took me with him because of that role, of the no BS rule. And so that's another thing that you can add to this. It's not in the slides, but it's now on the recording. Hi, everybody. What organizations can you do? Let's give you some ideas. Church groups, civic groups, sports teams, yours, the kids, doesn't really matter. Hey, if they have a website and they need email and they need document and file sharing, you're there. School labs, libraries, they're usually hiring, okay? Usually not much, but again, we're going for experience
They're not
here.
paying anything, but they're hiring.
Yeah, yeah. It's, the pay is, the benefits are great. One guy said that he went to work for a school library system. He was an astronomy major, went to school, work for a school library system, and ended up working on the PDPs and the various other boxes, early Sun boxes and stuff like that. He left school with 3/4 of a degree, a fair amount of college loan debt, and a mastery of Unix and Linux that was probably 4 times what his school debt was. In other words, he had learned so much that it didn't matter what the rest of it was. He could now go out and make money and be a sysadmin and do the things that he wanted to do. So I love that concept. I don't like all the school debt, but So the interview process. Well, if you got the other 3 of these down, then you can get the interview. Remember, getting the interview is your ability to go in and impress this person with your sterling personality, your awesome work ethic, and your lack of things that would make them want to run the other way. So I probably would not tell them about, your fascination with, early, 17th century British trains or anything like that. I keep that to yourself. Yes, sir?
Secret. 1/3 to 1/2 of all people working in HR have an English degree or an MFA in English or English literature. Spell check. Have someone else spell check. Have
Wait.
your grandmother read your resume. If the HR folks see any sort of stuff like that, you are in the wastebasket.
I know, Dave's talking and I'm looking for typos real quick. It is true. It is true. Don't slag English majors in the interview, okay? Later, okay? So now I always tell people go buy the book, What Color Is Your Parachute? Anybody read this thing? Good, excellent. The rest of you, go get the ebook now, please, right now. Like Amazon, whatever you do, read this thing. I swear to God, it's in its like 3,500th revision. Richard Bolus got to be like 8,000 years old. But it gives you more in one book about how to get a job than any other thing I've ever read. It is absolutely worth your time as an investment. Even if you've already got a job and you're thinking, I'm happy where I'm at. A number of times that I've said, I'm happy where I'm at, and 3 weeks later I was either looking for a job or thinking, I really ought to go find another job. Okay? It's kind of like a universal rule. Just about the moment you're like, wow, somebody could describe me as kind of complacent right now. Uh-oh. Metaphor alert. Look out. That's about the time. What's that light over there? It's an oncoming train. Great. I always love this line, Van Wilder, when he says, okay, it's a date. And she says, no, it's an interview. Because all first dates are interviews. Okay? All interviews are first dates. Right? You're both looking to see, can this relationship work from a business perspective? Right? They're going to ask you questions, and I both love and detest these questions. What would you describe as your greatest weakness? Oh, crack pipe or 2 on the weekend. I've said that in an interview because it was the stupidest thing that anybody ever asked me. And I didn't want the job anyway. I ended up getting the job. I swear, on my mother's computer. I got the job because we both burst out laughing, and he goes, that's such a lame question. I know. I'm like, yeah, it is. It really is. What do you really do on the weekend? And I pulled the drumsticks out of the bag, and I said, he goes, really? Oh, I'm the lead singer. And I was like, so you like hanging around the musicians, huh? Sorry. Ooh. So at that moment, he lost the crowd.
I don't hate that question quite so much because I've asked it before and I want to see introspection. And if someone gives me a blow-off answer, it's a real problem.
Yeah.
But there's a trick to that question, which is why I don't ask it anymore, which is for anyone in any kind of an engineering role, the answer, I have trouble making accurate time estimates of upcoming work.
My personal response to that is I tend to lose track of time. And they go, what do you mean? I forget that it's time to leave. And I do. My wife will call me that there's one of those phrases. She goes, where are you now? And I'll say, approaching exit 12, which is next to the house. And she goes, oh, so you haven't left yet. Oh no, she's on to me. Yes.
A version of that question that actually did provoke introspection for me, and I kind of liked, was describe a time you failed. And I ended up getting that job, but that, unlike what's your greatest weakness, the describe a time you failed really does, it points you at, let's see.
Yeah.
And you think about a time you failed.
Well, you know what the follow-up to that one is, and I've heard that general kind of question before, is describe a time when you wish that you had done something different, and then you say, well, you know, that time that I did so-and-so in front of all the executives and it really didn't work. And then they say, well, what do you wish that you had done different? I wish that I had tried to do that and screwed it up in the server room first and then figured out how to do it in front of everybody, kind of thing. So and you're right, what that actually does is that shows that you have the capacity to learn from your mistakes. And you can have all the rest of the stuff, but if you're open, you're honest, you show me that you've been learning and you have a capacity to learn from your mistakes, then I'm more than likely definitely going to give you the interview. And if you're in the interview, you're probably going to be a pretty good candidate. It's probably going to happen. So the other piece here, the technical interview. This is the one where I say I ought to write a book. I have several, but it wasn't about that. But I have had people in a technical interview, let's just say I've been presented with a lot of people who really should not have been in the technical interview. I used to do all the technical interviewing for the Novell technical services team. So they had an instructor do the technical interviews. It was fun. I ended up talking to a lot of people. So for an instructor especially, it was great because I would tell them things like this. All right, I would do a little small talk and how you doing, and you like the, you think you're gonna like the job, and right, because I'm not the one making the decision about you getting the job. I'm just the one who gets to report back if you're a fake or not. Okay, can they do it technically or not? And so I would say, okay, you're an instructor, obviously, you're going for an instruction role, and so you walk into the room, it's mixed techies and executives, which you see a lot sometimes, and some of them are there to learn some of the newer aspects of TCP/IP networking, and some of them are there to figure out if their people are BSing them or not. You need to explain to this room, both sets of people, the concepts of TCP/IP and of networking overall in about 5 minutes, wrap it up nicely, I'm your audience, go. And then they have to explain. Some people just go into vapor lock right away. They don't know how to do that. They don't know how. If you say you're an instructor and you have X number of years of experience and I give you a problem like that, you should be able to do that, particularly if you have taught those classes before. If you can't, you haven't. Okay? I ended up talking to a guy who used to run certifications for a large organization, and it was about 4 questions into the interview when I realized he did not know the topic he had been building and managing certifications for at all. And I literally looked at the resume again, and I said, I just want to verify, you're so-and-so from the so-and-so. Yeah. And he said, yeah. I was just like, oh, crap. How did that happen? And I didn't want to embarrass him. We ended up being good friends, and I see him all the time, and he got better. But it's like, there's no way you're going to make it into our team. I can't. Even if I like you, I can't have you on the team. So wasting your technical interviewer's time is a great way to get a no really quickly. If you're learning from your technical interviewer, if you're madly scribbling notes about the topic you're being technically interviewed on, you're not ready. Okay? So what I tell people is go find interview questions from technical interviews. Search the web. Okay, let me Google that for you. I use it like a club with people. Hey, do you think you could find so-and-so for me? Yeah, let me send you a link. I usually get the response back, smart ass. What? Exactly. If you haven't seen it before, go do it. Basically, you type in the search that somebody should have searched into Google, and it has a little animated thing where it types it, and then it goes, click on the search button, and then it says, that wasn't so hard, was it? Okay, so, it's our way of kind of getting back. Another thing about this whole process is that if you get to the technical interview, you have gotten past the gatekeeper of the other skills, okay? So this is a good sign when they say, I'm going to schedule you for a technical interview. They typically don't schedule you for the technical interview until they find out if you have 3 heads and really bad habits, kind of thing. Okay, I have seen it go the other way around, but that's a very engineering or programming or whatever driven organization. So working for open source companies like SUSE, it's an interesting thing because what we really have right now is about 850 people. We got about 105, 106 open recs. I have 10 open recs on my team right now. 10. We're growing at a rate that if we didn't have a good perspective about it, we would feel nervous about it, okay? But that's the way the market is happening right now. I don't know if you noticed or not, but in the server and the OS wars, we won. I mean Linux and open source overall. Yeah. While we were all fighting about how to do stuff and the desktop and things like that, the server was quietly winning the war. It really was. And I realized it one day. I was like, wow, it's been a long time since I had an argument with somebody about which operating system to use. Maybe I should hang out with different people. No, that's not it. Huh, interesting. So when you look at the joke from the Java janitor all the way up to the executive, most of our executives are aggressively open source. My boss and his boss both took the jobs that they took because they worked for Micro Focus, our way up parent company, saw the SUSE acquisition coming and said, I really want to do that. My executive VP, Michael Miller, literally went and spent 2 months with the product teams and the various programming teams and all the rest of that, dressed like we typically dress, t-shirt, jeans, and the whole ball of wax, and is probably the most approachable person I've ever met. So when we talk about having good leadership means that things go better, it really does. If your bosses and the people who run your company are using your product and pushing your product and doing a good job with it, it's going to go all the way down to the rest of everybody. So some of the jobs that we see internally, engineering. Lots of engineering jobs in the SUSE world. Lots of engineering jobs in the open source world as well. Now, depends on where you're from when you talk about what's an engineer and who's an engineer, okay? Product management, project management, which is a little bit different. We also have program managers, people who basically are the nerd herders, I have a program manager. So my team consists of me, a guy in Provo, a guy in Scotland, and Amy, who is our program manager, and she's out of Indianapolis. And she calls the team Wendy and the Lost Boys, and it's accurate. Okay, like 3 absent-minded professors and the most organized being I've ever met in my life. Amy, not us. Okay, and so she keeps the whole thing running and does it well. That's a program manager job. People who push stuff forward. Okay, we would be lost without that role. Sales and partner executives. This is a big deal. So a lot of people go, "Oh, I would never work in sales." Have you ever recommended something to somebody?
Yes.
You're in sales. Unpaid sales. Okay, but you're in sales. If you've ever passionately described to somebody how they ought to use this particular thing instead of that particular thing, yes, you're in sales. Yeah. See? Okay, open source. The careers here. A couple things about our careers page. I recommend, having spent this amount of time with all of you, I'd say come work for us. Okay, don't work for the other guys. Come look at our stuff, because we need good people. And this is not a recruiting drive for me. I just throw this in here because we got a lot of job recs. And at the very least, you can go look at them and see what's going on. So our job recs list, because the tool that we use wasn't written terribly well, but we still use it, Silk Road. It lists locations as if you have to be at this location. This job only exists for this location. 99% of them are online telepresence and don't require. Now, if it's the facilities manager for the Provo office, that's location specific, okay? That's the kind of thing. Most of them, it doesn't matter. My team is in 4 time zones and 2 continents. And we have this weird kind of 24-hour, there's always something going on. Nobody's ever expected to be around off hours, but if you answer, it's no big deal kind of thing. It's very loose, but it's well organized and it works really well. The only problem is the round trip time between the different continents sometimes. And it's really bad if you have to schedule a meeting with APAC, EMEA, and the US. Somebody's getting up in the middle of the night somewhere, no way around it, okay? Who else can you work for? Google. Okay? I went and interviewed with Google in Manhattan. They decided, at the same time I decided it wasn't going to be a good fit. Because I didn't want to work that way. I didn't want to commute 2.5 hours either. It was just like, no, that's okay. They had
You
to
know
say-
why Google built an office here, don't you?
No.
People want to work here.
Here.
Well,
Yeah.
Seattle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're a little ways from Seattle.
Not 2 hours.
Well, I'm talking Seattle. They
Yeah.
built it in Seattle. I don't know what
Oh.
they did here.
Yeah. Well, honestly, when you look at it, I don't know why they build locations, other than to have rec rooms and places to put juices and stuff like that, because everybody just sits in their cubes. Anyway.
Anyway,
so-
they built one here in Seattle
Yeah.
because people want to work there.
I actually
So
think
they
you
want
should
to
go
be able
where.
to hire those people.
Yeah,
you know.
go where the people are if you have to.
Right, yeah.
Well, anybody know what Acquia is? The big Drupal hosting, kind of like WordPress for Drupal, WordPress.com for Drupal. Yahoo's got a truckload of Linux and open source jobs. It's like, okay, after a while you don't really think about it. Government, I've worked for government before. You can have it. Okay. It's not me. It moves at a particular pace and style that just, I don't know, it's not my thing. Consulting agencies, lots and lots of people on the Rent-A-Brain program. The Rent-A-Brain program says, we want to do something with Linux and open source, but we don't want to go through the trouble of hiring and firing somebody. Let's get a consultant. And they get them in, and most of the time it's the rent-to-own program. Oh, we like this consultant. Can we buy them? Yeah, for an exorbitant fee. Excellent. Okay? Having been that person before, it's a pretty good gig. That's how I got to work for Medtronic and Cargill. So these are definitely options. People say, do you have any links for this? Don't make me send you the let me Google that for you. Okay? It's so easy to find. He's given me the traveling thing back there. So, red flag on them. So, last couple of slides. Plan your career exquisitely and very loosely. My wife she goes, oh, that's like the old 38 Special song. I'm like, don't sing it. You don't know what I'm talking about, it's okay. Ask an uncle. So here are the jobs that I've been, and you're going to notice a certain, shall we say, theme in these. Okay, started out as printer boy, carrying all the paper up and down. Database nerd, structure manager, webmaster, social media, certification, courseware, certification. You're starting to see a pattern here. But some of these were apparent sidebars, but they weren't so far that it caused me to go down another channel, and I consistently stopped. So like somebody said, well, we need you to become the so-and-so CCNP for whatever, and I'm like, no. Why? Well, I know a lot about networking. I used to teach all the CCNA classes and CCDA classes, and I've got a CCNP. I don't want to do that. Why? Because it would cause me to dedicate so much of my brain space that I'd have to stop doing other things I really liked.
Yeah.
And they're like, what pays good? I'm like, go look up Thomas More. Okay. Right? If I go to hell for following you for friendship, but you go to heaven for following your own stuff, that kind of thing, and it's like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. And they said, well, okay, we're sorry. So the guy who got the job, he has a great time. He and I talk all the time. Neither one of us ever wants to do what the other one does. We're done. So, experiment, play around. Try to get a career track that doesn't end you up in what I like to call the career ecological backwater. Okay? Don't go so far down a track that you can't get back out. It's very important. And so hopefully some of this has been helpful to you. If you guys have any questions or anything, it's real simple, ross.brunson@suse.com. I'm going to be around the show for the next the next day and a half here. And how many are going to take the exams? Register to take the exams? Okay, couple. All right. Now you don't want to do it? I talked you out of it? Rats. Okay. Thanks for your time. Appreciate it. Wait. Notice I am